In the previous episode, Lin found himself under attack by a group of dragon professionals, but true to form, he quickly dispatched them without breaking a sweat. However, before he could catch his breath, Alice showed up, this time with a massive army of demons in tow. The succubus queen wasn't taking any chances either. She decided to send a Crimson Moon demon to ambush Lin. Things quickly got complicated, and Lin found himself in a tough spot. As we continue the story, as the skeletal warriors emerged, spikes shot up from the ground, rushing toward them in a deadly wave. But the skeletons were ready for it. With their rampage strikes ready, their massive great swords sliced through the spikes like they were nothing more than twigs. However, the spikes shattered, spraying out a nasty-looking purple goo. The moment the goo hit the skeletons, it started to sizzle, eating away at their armor with an unsettling hiss. The undead general wasn't having any of that. Raising his scepter high, he cast a mass healing spell over the injured skeletons. Meanwhile, Lin watched the battle from a distance, noticing that the attacks barely made a dent in the Crimson Moon demon. Just then, a playful laugh echoed from above. Alice was watching the scene as if it were her favorite show. She tells Lin that they've already analyzed all of his moves. As for this Crimson Moon demon, it's the queen who personally picked it out just for him, she teased with a smirk, while seemingly enjoying the thrill of seeing Lin going to get killed. It was painfully obvious she had a point. The Crimson Moon demon's abilities seemed tailor-made to counter Lin's skeletal army. Mo Yun caught on too and turned to Lin, asking what they should do next. But Lin wasn't in a rush, telling her there's no need to panic. He wanted to see what else it got. Eyes scanning the demon for any sign of weakness. Mo Yun nodded, then hopped on her unicorn and decided to hold off the demons in the sky instead. Up there, one of the demons couldn't help but ask Alice, "Why don't they just gang up on that human? He's only level 30, thinking Lin's stats must be trash." Alice let out a cold chuckle while telling them to go ahead if they got a death wish. She shot back telling them even the queen was cautious about Lin. If it weren't for the eternal trial grounds restrictions, the queen would have sent an even stronger and higher-level Crimson Moon demon to deal with him. By this point, a horde of demons had already swarmed toward Mo Yun. To Alice, this was a done deal. She was confident they'd prepared well enough, and was more than willing to wait and watch Lin meet his end right here. Things weren't looking great for Lin either. Spikes erupted from the ground in every direction, piercing his skeletons one by one. Lin kept casting slow curses and even tried using bone spikes to counterattack, but breaking the spikes only unleashed more of that corrosive goo, hurting his skeletons even more. In return, he couldn't do any damage to the demon. Lin silently ran through every possible scenario in his head, knowing he needed to find a way to force the demon's true form out. Suddenly, something clicked. A smirk spread across his face as he raised his hand, summoning a green light that quickly expanded into a glowing ring. This was the Venomous Ring, a skill Lin had just picked up and hadn't had time to upgrade yet. The damage wasn't impressive, but it might be enough to draw out the Crimson Moon demon. Seeing Lin make his move, Mo Yun knew he had a plan. The ring expanded outward, and a faint green mist spread through the air, turning into a thin layer of toxic mist. The demons, clueless about what was coming, barely noticed. But then, Lin saw something, the mist soon coalescing into a single spot and emerging from the ground. Without hesitation, he hit it with a slowing curse. Though the form was unclear, it was quickly bound by several red shackles. Lin wasn't about to let it escape. He followed up with a barrage of soul flames. The ground suddenly shook violently. Lin knew he'd found the Crimson Moon demon's true form. He looked up and called out to Mo Yun, telling her to bring them down. Mo Yun responded with a sharp shout, changing direction in midair. Before the abyssal demons even realized what was happening, Mo Yun unleashed a bright flash of light, a skill that grounded all flying creatures. The demons quickly found themselves plummeting to the ground, completely out of control. Confused, they tried to figure out why they couldn't fly anymore. Wasn't grounding magic something only top-tier mages could pull off? Panic set in, but it didn't take long for them to notice they were surrounded by Lin's skeletons, closing in fast. Desperately, they tried to take to the skies again, but it was no use. They were stuck on the ground, right where Lin wanted them. Panic flashed in Alice's eyes, but she was the quickest to react. In a split second, she pulled out a high-level random teleportation talisman and crushed it, vanishing without a trace. The other demons weren't so lucky. They were met with a storm of bone spikes tearing through their bodies. followed by the relentless slashes of the skeletal warriors' great swords. In just a few moments, every last demon was cut down. Mo Yun couldn't believe her eyes. In mere seconds, she had racked up 100,000 military merits. It took her over 2 years of hard work to reach the rank of lieutenant, and now she'd just jumped to colonel in the blink of an eye. Staring at Lin, she didn't even know how to describe him. Terrifying didn't seem to do him justice. With the annoying small fry taken care of, Lin wasn't too concerned about Alice escaping. He turned his gaze to the Crimson Moon demon with a slight smile. It was time for the main course. The demon, now bound tightly by shackles, was barely visible as a shifting mass. One of the nearby skeletal warriors tossed a demon corpse towards it, and the Crimson Moon demon instinctively lashed out, skewering the body with spikes. But that was exactly what Lin wanted. The demon had no idea it was about to meet its end. As the spikes embedded in the corpse began to swell, a thunderous explosion rocked the ground. Lin had triggered corpse explosion, shattering the surrounding spikes and sending a spray of purple goo flying in all directions. However, his skeletal armor gleamed, shielding him from the splatter, but it wasn't enough to kill the demon. Sensing danger, the demon tried to flee, slithering through the ground, but it wasn't fast enough. The toxic mist lingering in the air gave away its position in no time. Another corpse was flung in its direction, another massive explosion, though this time the ground trembled as if the demon was letting out a silent, desperate cry. Corpses kept flying, each one detonating on impact. Mo Yun couldn't help but think back to when she, Lin, and Yi fought the Ghost Emperor. Lin was just as unstoppable then as he was now, tearing through everything in his path. After enduring countless corpse explosions, the demon let out one final soundless wail before it was blown to pieces. The system notified the defeated level 52 Crimson Moon demon. Experience gained, 2.6 million. Military merit, 10,000. To be honest, the Crimson Moon demon wasn't all that strong, really. Once you found its true form, it was easy to take down. But Lin knew it was his newly acquired skills that had turned the tide. Without the skill, he might have been in serious trouble, although he still had the teleportation talisman. But we all want to see our boy kick ass, am I right? He couldn't help but feel that a new danger was approaching. The succubus queen must have gathered a lot of intel on him to send a demon like this specifically to counter his abilities. Was someone among the human faction leaking his information to her? Could it have been his performance at the professional competition that drew too much attention? Or maybe it's the demon worshippers? Lin mused, finding the idea disturbingly plausible. It has to be them. Mo Yun slowly landed beside him, taking a deep breath. Finally, it's over, she said. But before they could relax, they heard the sound of something pounding against the magic array surrounding them. Both turned to see what was going on. It was obvious. Someone was trying to break through. With a loud crash, the magic array shattered like glass, and a group of human professionals charged in, weapons raised while yelling, "Protect our own kind." But the sight that greeted them was beyond belief. The ground was littered with the corpses of demons, and even a few dragons. They could hardly believe their eyes. Were they hallucinating? Lin didn't pay them any mind, though. His skeletal warriors were already busy collecting loot, some even prying the gear off the dead dragon professionals. Mo Yun stood there, wide-eyed, thinking to herself, Lin's definitely got looting down to an art. He's clearly done this more times than I can count. Lin glanced up at the sky. The red glow above was already starting to fade. By his calculations, this was the 10th day, which meant the fusion of the primordial rune should be nearly complete. However, Mo Yun might still need a few more days. After stowing everything in his storage space, Lin turned to Mo Yun and told her it was time to move. Mo Yun smiled and asked if he was planning to search for the secret realm. Lin nodded. Mo Yun then remarked that with Lin's strength, passing through the secret realm would be a breeze. Now came the task of finding the entrance, but with Mo Yun's unicorn, scouting from the sky would make things much faster. Meanwhile, let's check what's going on the dragon side. From afar, a roar echoed from a massive palace. "Who dares to challenge my people?" A powerful voice roared, its force piercing the heavens. The speaker couldn't comprehend why so many of their dragon warriors had been falling lately. He turned to those behind him. "Investigate! Find out what's happening in the eternal trial ground," another voice responded immediately. Within moments, a large group of dragon professionals flew out from the palace, heading in one direction. Sometime later, one of them returned to what they referred to as the Dragon King, who was savoring a fine wine. The dragon reported everything that had occurred in the eternal trial grounds over the past few days. The Dragon King was livid. He crushed the glass in his hand, and his voice thundered through the palace once more. "Send out the order. Every dragon warrior in the upper layers of the eternal trial ground is to work together and hunt down this human. Find him and kill him." He was willing to mobilize every resource in the upper layers of the trial grounds to ensure Lin's death. "Our warriors won't die in vain." His murderous intent was so intense that the entire palace trembled once more. Meanwhile, Alice, the ever-so-lucky succubus, had managed to escape once more and get in touch with the succubus queen. She looked visibly shaken as she reported their failure. The succubus queen was surprised but didn't blame Alice, acknowledging that even she hadn't expected the Crimson Moon Demon to fail either. But she quickly issued a new order which needed Alice to head to the deepest part of the central region and deliver her command to what she referred as those guys. What exactly she meant wasn't mentioned, but we saw Alice take off at full speed in a specific direction. As she flew, Alice couldn't shake the Queen's final words. She wanted those people to eliminate Lin. The primordial rune no longer mattered to her. What she truly desired was to see Lin dead. Back with Lin, the red glow above him had completely vanished. Something new had appeared on the back of his hand. It was clear he had successfully completed the fusion. Even more surprisingly, this rune allowed him to sense the general location of the primordial space. And as a bonus, he'd gained a new skill called Mighty Soldiers. Thanks to his innate talent, this skill was further enhanced, which allowed this skill to boost all his and his summon's base stats by 200%, and increase all damage dealt by an additional 500% for 30 seconds. However, it came with a 1-hour cooldown. Curious, Mo Yun asked where the primordial space was located. Lin casually replied that it was in the lower layers. Mo Yun rubbed her chin thoughtfully, then sighed in disappointment. She hadn't expected it to be in the lower layers, meaning they wouldn't be able to reach it anytime soon. Turned out, the primordial space never appears in the same place twice. It could be in the upper layers, the lower layers, or even the deep layers. Only those recognized by the primordial rune can sense its exact location and gain entry. Each rune also comes with a unique skill, rumored to be incredibly powerful. Intrigued, Mo Yun asked Lin what skill he had received. Lin didn't hold back and explained his new skill, Mighty Soldiers. She listened carefully, then speculated that the rune's skills might be tailored to each individual's profession. Before coming here, White Divine hadn't gone into such detail with Lin, so this was all new territory. As Lin stared at the rune on the back of his hand, he fell silent for a long moment. Something about the rune started to feel eerily familiar to him. The patterns, the symbols, everything seemed to jog a memory. Wait a second, isn't this a galaxy? And not just any galaxy. He could swear he'd seen this specific one somewhere before.